Hello and welcome to Entourage Yearbooks. My name is Jason, and today I'm going to be joined with three individuals who have participated in our EPIC program. This program is to help give back to charities, nonprofits, and help continue the great work they've been doing. And I'm joined with Mr. Chris Bright, Mr. Bill Curry, and also Mr. Ray Stedman.
My name is Chris Bright. I am the creative director for St. Matthew's House, located in Southwest Florida. I oversee all of the marketing communications for the organization, and I've been with the organization only since August of last year. So I'm wrapping up my first season down here, but it has been a whirlwind. We've been incredibly busy, but we were very excited to partner with Entourage to be part of the memory book for the Naples Automotive Experience.
I guess we can turn it over to Ray.
Hey, Jason, thank you. Yes, St. Matthew's House, I currently serve as the Vice President of Programs, where I oversee our residential programs, which includes a couple of homeless shelters with about 194 beds, two faith-based integrated recovery programs for men and for women, which has over 100 residents at any given time. And we also have a food distribution model to where we go out into the community and we help folks who are experiencing food insecurity make ends meet. We give out food through a mobile distribution model at church partners locations where their volunteers come alongside of us and really help us get a lot more man hours to be able to distribute that food on a weekly basis. And that's my role here at St. Matthew's House.
And last but not least, Mr. Bill Curry.
So my role at St. Matthew's House is the Vice President of Development. So I spend a lot of time with Chris in marketing and communications, then also on the fundraising side, working with our individual donors and businesses, churches, foundations, to generate revenue that pays for all of those awesome programs that Ray oversees. But a unique thing at St. Matthew's House is we also have several businesses that we run as we call them social enterprises, that help cover the profits from those, help cover administrative expenses of the organization. So that almost every philanthropic dollar goes directly to program expenses rather than overhead. So we're super excited about that, because not only do those businesses generate revenue, is they are a career relaunching place for many of the graduates of the programs that Ray oversees. Which makes them check multiple boxes of effectiveness for us here in our community.
Focusing on St. Matthew's House, though, explain what the organization does and maybe how you were able to get involved, or maybe when you first got involved.
So 1987, organically, there was a women's Bible study. They were studying the book of Matthew, and they got to the passage in the book of Matthew, in Matthew 25, and Jesus is kind of laying out what discipleship looks like. And he basically says, when they were hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was a stranger, you took me in. And the disciples, of course, challenging Jesus, saying, what did we see you in these situations? And he said, he says this key phrase that when you've done this unto the least of these, you've done it unto me. And these ladies in 1987 decided they lived in Naples, Florida, and there were no hungry, homeless, naked, or people that needed any kind of support that Jesus had mentioned in Matthew 25. And as divine providence would have it, there was an article with a front page story in the Naples News Press in 1987 that had a man eating out of a dumpster. And that was the prodding of these women to start a feeding ministry on Thanksgiving Day of 1987. And so as they began to progress, they decided we need more support than just a meal. We had to start building that lower foundation of support that you find in the Maslow's hierarchy of need. We need shelter. We need a place for people to get rest. And then once we built that model out, we decided that, we're seeing this revolving door of individuals that are coming into our shelter. They gain traction in that structure, but then they're going back out and they're getting caught up in these triggers that create relapse. So in 2010, we launched a recovery program, and that has evolved over the years. It started off as a men's program, and in 2013, we launched a women's program. It started off as a 3-month program, then it went to a 7-month program, and now we've settled on the fact that we believe that a year-long program is the most effective. And then, of course, we've always been very passionate about serving those who are living in the community, but their finances may be putting them in a marginal situation to where they just can't make ends meet. So we've always given out food, whether it was hot meals or or through our pantry model, where we would give maybe a couple of bags of groceries to help those families make ends meet. And then at the beginning of the pandemic, that was launched into a mobile model that created an exponential growth with the community at large because of the need and the demand for food.
Now, with your time with St. Matthew's House, what are some difficulties of growing an organization like that?
I think one that is one of the more obvious ones is as you grow, it takes more fuel in the gas tank to keep it going, right? So from a philanthropy perspective, you need more money in many ways, and that's both a blessing and a curse. But I think even Renee talked a little bit about like growth is not necessarily always the best thing in every circumstance because you got to maintain like quality too.
Yeah, so growth, funding is great, but you also have to have that human capacity. If you had all the money in the world, you still have to maintain that quality of your programming that Bill was referring to. And a lot of the times, Bill talked about the fact that we hire folks and give them that next step opportunity in social enterprise, but we also do that within programs. And one of the best ways to improve the quality of your program is to hire people who have that shared experience, not just the shared experience of addiction or homelessness, but also the shared experience of recovery and how to walk that out properly. And that takes time. That takes time because you can't do that in a microwave type environment. Yeah. And so those staff, they marinate and they learn how to be better quality instruments of change the longer they can sit in those seats and marinate. And so, yes, growth is wonderful, but it has to be done intentionally at a good pace, that the funding is in alignment with the human capacity as well as the facility, because that also can become challenging and problematic. But the one thing that we've found is that as much as we've increased, as much as we've expanded since I've been here, the need only continues to go up.
My background is in pretty much marketing communications most of my professional life, and I've worked in a number of other nonprofits. And what makes St. Matthew's House, quite frankly, the most unique organization I've ever worked with is that you have what I kind of refer to as those traditional nonprofit customers, those traditional nonprofit ways of communicating, whether you're trying to reach out to donors or you're trying to reach the communities that we impact, so the people who are addicted, who are suffering homelessness, who are food insecure. But then you have the social enterprises that Bill mentioned, which they're not for-profit organizations, but your customers certainly are. We run a fleet of thrift and boutique stores. We have 7 currently, with our 8th going to be reopening soon. It was damaged during Ian, but it's going to be opening in June. We run a full-service breakfast and lunch restaurant, complete with a drive-through. We have an award-winning catering company, and we run a hotel and conference center. And those customers for those enterprises aren't necessarily in the mold of your traditional nonprofit customer. But when we're talking about growth and challenges, the challenge has actually become a positive, and it's been something that we've really embraced. I've never seen an organization that grows as fast as St. Matthew's House does, but manages to do so with the amount of planning and the amount of forethought to ensure that even though we know it's not going to go perfect every time we roll something new out, everyone has had boots on the ground and is ready to have done the legwork to make sure it's successful. Meeting that bridge of our 2 different customer bases from a marketing and communications perspective is is something that my team is constantly trying to fix and to figure out better ways to do that. It's very easy in a 10,000-foot view to reach a donor base. It's very easy to promote a thrift store. It's very easy to promote a restaurant. But trying to bridge that gap and explain to our customers that are coming in to eat, did you know that when you dine at Lulu's Kitchen, which is the name of our restaurant, your dollars are actually help impacting the people that are in our programs. And the person who is serving you may actually be a graduate of those programs. And so it's an interesting exercise in keeping one foot on either side of the fence, while always kind of having your eyes forward towards what the next opportunity is going to be.
One thing that this brings me to is COVID. Now, we had a stretch of maybe 2.5 years where everything shut down. So I'm just curious, when you're dealing with people who are hungry, homeless, because I assume that you would need to be there physically, in order to feed them and take care of them. So I'm just curious, during that time, during the pandemic, what happened? What did St. Matthew's House readjust, or what did you have to do during that time? And were you still able to help people in the capacity that you are now?
Great question, Jason. It was interesting because you have one business model from the program side that exploded. Our food distributions went from a 400 family per month capacity. That month one, we remember when the nation shut down for that very first month. I think it was April of 2020. That very first month, we served 4,000 families. So we went from 400 in March to 4,000 in April.
Wow.
And then by the middle of summer, we were over 10,000. And you have this one side of the organization where food distributions are exploding, and there's really no other way to say it. We were actually building the airplane while we were flying it, which is never fun.
Right.
But
Wow.
we had a ton of church partners, and there was a ton of support in the community to be able to come out and provide man hours and manpower to be able to distribute that food. And then at the same time, in our residential programs, we reduced capacity. We had to pull back so we could stagger our beds, which is what the CDC recommended. When someone did test positive, we had a whole series of protocols that were put into place. We would have staff that would test positive. And then there was, isolation periods. So that was there was a lot of challenges that we were, like everybody else, we were trying to figure out how to still do the work that the Lord has called us to do, be safe for our residents, and also be safe for our staff.
It seems that through all of that during the pandemic, and you're right, people need to be connected. I would ask is, are there any success stories that maybe you can share? Maybe not giving any names if you don't want to do that, but anything that you've seen of that were successful, because it seems like the whole, pandemic and making sure that everyone was safe did go well. Any success stories that you wanted to share?
I know the one I can think of right off the bat, and I was not with the organization during COVID, but one of our biggest generators on the social enterprise side is our thrift stores. So one thing that came from the pandemic and still operates to this day is the online version of our thrift store. We were able to pivot during the pandemic as our brick and mortar shut down, and still continue to offer thrift, be able to take donations, be able to, and when I donations, I'm talking about clothing, home goods, furniture, things like that, that we would normally sell in our thrift store and pivot to an online model. And that allowed for stability, not only financially, but also still providing a way for our employees to remain with the organization, remain employed, and get a paycheck. And as I said, it's still going to this day. We've actually grown the online model. We're one of the few true online thrift stores that operates the way that we do in terms of a donation model. So we're really excited about that. It was one of those things that I think we probably would have gotten around to at some point, but the pandemic sort of, out of necessity, sort of kickstarted that, and that is from a social enterprise perspective is a massive success.
So we have a few minutes left. What I'm going to do is show some pictures of Cars on Fifth, which is an organization that takes place annually in Naples, Florida, and actually is the largest annual one-day event in Naples, Florida. As I share the screen, maybe Chris or Bill, can one of you tell us a little bit about this organization, because I know they are partnering with St. Matthew's House for this event, about what this event is and maybe what people can expect if they decided to go.
The Cars on Fifth show started about 18 years ago with about 15 or so Ferrari owners who were seeking to raise money for charity in Naples. And they raised $200 that first year. Now, 18, 19 years later, the show has over 725 cars. It also turns away 700 cars this year that we didn't have space. We take over the entire downtown area of Naples for what it amounts to about 14 blocks when you put all the blocks together. About 150 vendors. This year, nearly 25,000 people attended the show. Saturday is the big show called Cars on Fifth. And it was just incredible this year. I mentioned that the very first year of the Ferrari Club trying to raise money for a charity, they raised $200. This year, we raised almost $1.4 million over the 4 days. And all of the proceeds of this weekend come to St. Matthew's House and go directly to the programs that Ray oversees. And it's a fantastic event, but it's got several benefits in my mind. It's cash for the organization, which is super important. It's also publicity and PR for the organization, but also for the issues that we care about related to affordable housing and homelessness and addiction and hunger and workforce development. This year, 700 and some cars, 150 of them Ferraris. We actually had the second Ferrari ever imported into America, was on site this year, worth about $65 or $70 million, which I don't really know that much about cars, but I do know an awful lot about the people and the struggle that they have when they're coming into our shelters or into our addiction program or into our food pantry lines. And it makes all of this glamour and glitz of the weekend really get rooted in the grit of St. Matthew's House and our daily programs that operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
I'm just curious. I know that this is an annual event. Do you all go to it, or is it like, you're so busy with Matthew House that And I'm sorry, there was one question I did want to ask, but because Bill said he's not a car person, I was going to ask, what's your favorite, dream car? I was going to just throw out there, just for fun.
The 67 Impala hardtop.
There we go. Ooh, okay.
Hey, Ray, go ahead, Ray. Your favorite car?
I mean, a Jeep Rubicon.
Well, that's
Now you're living the dream.
Ray, I Jeep Rubicons, not super fancy, but man, it's a five speed back too. I love all these other cars, but I wouldn't even want to try to keep up with them. I like what I got. But
That's awesome.
Yeah, you asked the question, are we there? And
Yes.
that's a fantastic question. It's absolutely. We have probably 60 or 70 staff members there. Yeah. We have dozens and dozens of participants from our programs that are there working, and 450 volunteers throughout the day that are serving and directly turning their volunteer time into cash for the programs at St. Matthew's House. It's like unbelievably fascinating to watch all the pieces come together. We had 76 stories in local media this year for the show. Just unbelievable. So you asked, are we there? The answer is yes. We're there from about 4 a.m. till about midnight and 4 days.
Thank you, everyone who's watching. I want to give a thank you to Chris Bright to Mr. Ray Stedman and also Mr. Bill Curry. Thank you so much for taking the time out just to speak with us about Cars on Fifth as well as St. Matthew's House. And I just want to, send prayers up to you that you can continue on with the work that you're currently doing. And I think that, the EPIC program and Entourage Yearbooks, this is something that this is what we wanted to do, help people who are helping people. All right, guys. So have a great day. And thank you again for joining us today.